Very soon, this month, Pirates of the Caribbean is going to be added to Genie Plus, Lightning Lane. This is major news for fans of Disneyland because if there's any attraction in the entire resort that does not need Lightning Lane, it's Pirates of the Caribbean. And where Lightning Lane is known by every Disneyland guest as a standby killer, it has people asking the question, why? Actually, that's putting it kind of politely. There are people who are very, very upset. And that's because no matter how busy the park is, or where you are in your day, or what you're doing, you can always count on Pirates of the Caribbean being a quick, easy, fun ride to enjoy. And adding Genie Plus effectively ends that. It completely changes the ride. So in getting back to that question, why, there are a few reasons that we can discuss. Some of them pretty obvious and not very positive, but others a little less obvious and a little more positive. It all depends on your perspective, and that perspective being whether or not you have purchased Genie Plus. Now, to better understand the negative reaction to putting Pirates on Genie Plus, let's start with Monsters, Inc. over at California Adventure. A traditional dark ride that is pretty efficient. Not quite an omnimover, but still smooth enough to cycle a lot of guests quickly, creating what should be an easy flow of guests through the queue. Under normal conditions, 20 minutes would be thought a longish wait. That's what it was prior to being added to Genie Plus back in the day. Post-Genie, the queue is now kind of excruciating, where waits are typically in the 45 to 60 minute range. This is very bad, of course, but it's made worse by the fact that rides like Monsters, Inc., well, dark rides, really, these are the best examples of rides that should be day fillers, breaks from the grind of other attractions that might be a little bit more difficult to get on. It can be exhausting chasing attractions where every single one of them is on Genie Plus and you're just constantly doing battle. You're competing with Lightning Lane. Monsters, Inc. is probably the best example of the truly negative impact that Genie Plus, that Lightning Lane has on standby. Now, when Disney decided to add Little Mermaid to Genie Plus, there was more anger and resentment for exactly the same reason. By its nature, Ariel's Undersea Adventure is a smooth, efficient ride system. Even more so than Monsters, Inc. Even on its busiest day, you were never going to need Lightning Lane for Little Mermaid. 20 minutes, tops. That's on the worst day. But they did it anyway, creating artificial demand, making standby longer than it should be in order to sell more Genie Plus. Genie Plus creates the problem that it proposes to solve. Now forward to Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's getting the same treatment that Monsters, Inc. and Little Mermaid have received. And this is the pinnacle, the very definition of Disney creating a problem that never existed to begin with in order to sell Genie Plus, the solution to that problem. That's the obvious and not so positive reason. Agreed. But there is a slightly less obvious, more positive reason that should be observed. And that's an issue of value for those guests who do choose to buy Genie Plus. In the update we received regarding Pirates and Genie, it was explained that Disney was doing this because both Haunted Mansion and Splash Mountain would be closed at the same time for a considerable amount of time, up to 7 months. And my initial reaction was, that's pretty lousy logic. Yeah, the Pirates queue will grow. Obviously, those guests who would normally be in the Haunted Mansion or Splash Mountain queues, you got to put them somewhere. And the most likely place those guests are going to go is going to be Pirates of the Caribbean. But as we already know, as we've just explained, putting an attraction on Lightning Lane doesn't reduce your standby wait. It makes it worse. It makes it longer. So who are they kidding, really? But that question that I'm asking comes from somebody who doesn't buy Genie Plus. From the perspective of somebody who does buy Genie Plus, the closure of Haunted Mansion and Splash Mountain means that they are, in fact, getting less value than they should for that purchase. The price for Genie Plus is the same no matter how many attractions are open on that day you buy it. But as the list of closures grow for those attractions that are on the Genie Plus roster, the value of Genie Plus goes down, obviously. In January, Disneyland is going to be down not just two major attractions, they're going to be down 2 lightning lane attractions, major lightning lane attractions, major draws. Adding Pirates of the Caribbean helps to offset some of that lost value for Genie Plus owners. It's actually, and I can't believe that I'm going to say this, and I know I'm probably going to catch hell for it, it's actually probably, possibly the right thing to do. Genie Plus users deserve value for their dollar in just the same way as every other park guest does. Now, obviously, I'm not a fan of the move from the overall guest experience perspective. It will make standby waits longer, and it's going to lower the guest experience for anybody who doesn't buy Genie Plus, which is roughly, as best as I understand, about 65% of the park. Chapek said they're selling Genie Plus to roughly 35% of park guests. I don't know how accurate that is or how true that is today. I feel like maybe they're selling more today than they were in the past, or that could have just been the holiday season talking. But to listen to Chapek say it, 35% of guests were buying Genie Plus. That means the other 65% of guests are not, and they are not benefiting from Pirates being added to Lightning Lane. And that sucks, because the reality is that it pushes Disney a little closer to Genie Plus being required in order to enjoy a day at the park. And the real test for Disney's motives in this will be what happens when Haunted Mansion reopens in August, because that's what they're saying. They're saying that this is a temporary move, and they're doing this only because Haunted Mansion and Splash are closed at the same time. The assumption then means when Haunted Mansion reopens, they will take Pirates back off of Lightning Lane. If they keep Pirates on Lightning Lane after they open Haunted Mansion in August, then we can say for sure this is just greed and has nothing to do with improving anybody's guest experience, anybody's sense of value. And they don't have to wait for both attractions to reopen, mind you. They don't have to wait for Tiana's to reopen, because Tiana's has already been closed for, the past 6 months, and they didn't make that move then. If they had done this back in, May, when they closed Tiana's, then you would have an argument that they could hold off until that even. But just Haunted Mansion. Anything else will be confirmation that Genie Plus is not meant for the common guest and is not intended to improve the overall guest experience. Anything else, and Genie moves into that premium experience for just for the premium guest, if you catch my drift. And if that's the case, then maybe it would be time for Disney to start selling Genie Plus for a premium price. Notice that they haven't, by the way, in spite of the fact that Knott's Berry Farm sells theirs for $100, in spite of the fact that Universal sells their pass, the Express Pass, for $200. Disney won't. They haven't because they're enamored with the idea that they're trying to portray the image of them being a family-friendly park with family-friendly pricing. Pricing like $100 or $200 is bad optically. But what's interesting is that you don't actually hear a lot of complaints. I don't hear any complaints about the cost of Fast Lane or Express Lane. And I think that's because neither Knott's or Universal are trying to sell those passes to everyone. Only to those hardy guests who are willing to pay either $100 or $200, willing to pay that premium price for, by the way, a premium experience. And that's what this is. These are premium experiences. That's what Genie Plus is. There is no difference, literally, between Lightning Lane, Express Lane, or Fast Lane. They are all identical. The only thing that is different between all three of those offerings is the price. Well, I take that back. Knott's has one advantage. Theirs is unlimited, whereas Universal and Disney's are limited to just one ride per attraction. Maybe it's time that Disney starts selling Genie Plus at that premium price. But that's a tough one, because I like the park being accessible to everyone. I like everyone having a chance to have a high-quality day at Disneyland. Even casual guests who don't want to buy Genie Plus or maybe can't afford to buy Genie Plus. Now, the good news from Disney's perspective is that they have considerably more attractions to choose from. Many of them either aren't included on Genie Plus or aren't affected by Lightning Lane. But that gap is closing if they keep adding attractions like they have Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Little Mermaid, and now Pirates of the Caribbean. DCA is actually almost already there all the way. There isn't a single major attraction at DCA that isn't on Genie Plus. There's just a couple. The Golden Zephyr, Silly Symphony, Take Care. I can't think of it. Oh yeah, Mater's and Luigi's. And then compare that, by the way, to Knott's Berry Farm. It is next to impossible to have a high quality day at Knott's Berry Farm without buying Fastlane, or at least that is the case on its busier days. Certainly there are off-peak days, off-season days where it's fairly easy to get around the park and you probably don't need Fastlane. But like we saw last week, every single ride, like legit ride, I think I think all of them were, is 90 minutes or plus. And as the day grew on, I was seeing them start getting to the 135-minute range. And those excessive standby wait times were a result of more people buying Fastlane at Knott's Berry Farm than at, let's say, Universal Studios, where there's a negligible effect due to the price point, I would imagine. The Express does not affect standby at Universal in the same way it does at other parks. You hardly even notice. At least I haven't. But that's probably because the barrier for entry to get into Knott's Berry Farm is also considerably less. I think a single day ticket is like $50. It's a lot cheaper to get into Knott's Berry Farm than it is Disneyland or Universal. Knott's is more affordable, yes, but exactly how much more affordable is it, really? I think I talked about this in our State of Disneyland report. The Prestige Pass, when we talk about annual passes, not single-day tickets, is $375. That's great. That's a great price. But if you want to add Fastlane to your Prestige Pass, it's $600. Now you're in, where you started at $375, you are now in for almost $1,000. How much can you do at Knott's Berry Farm without eventually needing to take advantage of Fastlane? I don't know. We're going to find out, actually, because I'm going to be going to Knott's Berry Farm again off-season, and we'll put that to the test. And it's actually, it's a very interesting conversation to have in terms of value, relatable value between Disneyland, Universal, and Knott's Berry Farm if you start factoring in the costs of Fastlane or FastPass or whatever. That's a conversation, though, I think, for another video. For now, we're going to wait for January 22nd. That's the day that Haunted Mansion closes. They're going to keep it open for a little while. They're going to keep it open while they take the overlay off at Small World, so they don't have 3 attractions down in January. That would be crazy. So Haunted Mansion is closing on January 22nd, and on that day, Pirates of the Caribbean is going to be added to Lightning Lane. I'm going to be there to see what happens to the Pirates queue. If we're lucky, we get something closer to Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. If we're not so lucky, we get more of a Monsters, Inc. effect. And to paraphrase Roz from Monsters, Inc., we'll be there and we'll be watching. Until then, follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. If you'd like our show and want to show you support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And Fresh Baked